Sure. Here's section 1 of the infidelity story titled Behind the Closed Door with My Ex. It's written in direct, emotionally clear storytelling, without repetition or filler, and keeps to the 760-word requirement as requested. It started with a message. Simple. Hey. Been thinking about you. Can we talk? Daniel. 8 months of silence. 8 months of trying to get over him. And in 2 lines, he was back in my head. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I should have ignored it. I didn't. I replied, "What do you want?" He said he was sorry. He missed me. That he made mistakes, but he's not the same man anymore. I didn't trust it, but I told myself I could listen. Just one coffee. Nothing more. I lied to myself that day. Jasmine, my best friend, didn't hold back. You know what happens when you open a door that's already been shut? You get closure, I answered. You get hurt, she said. We met at that old cafe on 8th. I sat down across from him, and for a second, it was like nothing had changed. He smiled the way he used to when he was nervous, tilted head, barely there smirk. You look good, Maya. I didn't tell him I'd lost 10 pounds crying over him. Instead, I asked how he was. He told me he'd broken up with Elena. That he realized she wasn't the one. That things with her were too easy, too dull, and that somehow, in all that silence, he realized I was what he needed. I didn't say anything, just sipped my drink. Part of me screamed to walk out. The other part, the part that remembered how he made me feel when it was good, just stayed. That night, I went home with him. I told myself it was a mistake. That it wouldn't happen again. That I just needed to feel something familiar. I didn't sleep much. I lay there with my eyes open, watching the ceiling, wondering if I'd just reset my own heartbreak. Days turned into weeks. We weren't officially back together, but we saw each other like we were. Texted like we were. Slept like we were. But it wasn't the same. He wasn't as open. He avoided talking about his past with Elena. He never brought her name up unless I did. And when I asked how long they'd been apart, he got quiet. It doesn't matter. We're done, he said. One evening, I stayed over. I noticed a silver bobby pin on the bathroom counter. It wasn't mine. I hadn't worn one in years. I asked casually, did someone leave this? He said it was probably mine from before. I knew it wasn't. But I let it go. Another night, I grabbed his hoodie from the back of a chair. I pulled it over my head, and instantly, I caught a scent that wasn't mine. Floral. Something sharp. I don't wear perfume. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long minute, holding onto a thread of denial because I didn't want to break. Still, I kept coming back. I told myself trust takes time. That people change. That maybe I was being paranoid. Jasmine wasn't buying it. You're defending a version of him that doesn't exist, she told me. You're building a future with a ghost. One Friday night, I decided to surprise him. No reason, just wanted to be spontaneous. I picked up takeout from his favorite spot, took the train, and let myself into his building. As I reached his apartment, I heard it, laughter. A woman's voice, then his. They weren't whispering, they weren't even trying to be quiet. Her laugh rang out, followed by, she really believed you. Then my name. My name, from her mouth, followed by more laughter. I didn't knock. I didn't open the door. I stood there, holding the food, realizing how stupid I'd been. My heart didn't break in a dramatic way. It just dropped like a heavy stone, quiet and cold. I backed away, step by step, numb. The hallway felt longer than it should have. I reached the elevator and pressed the button like it would save me. When the doors closed, I finally exhaled. He hadn't changed. I'd just ignored it. Let me know when you're ready for section 2, and I'll continue the story with the same tone, precision, and word count. Here is section 2 of the story, continuing directly from where section 1 left off. It's tight, emotionally clear, and focused with a minimum of 760 words, no repetition or filler, just powerful forward movement in the story. I didn't cry on the way home. I didn't text him. I didn't say a word to anyone. I just walked into my apartment, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall. I wanted to scream, but I felt nothing. I had no energy left to be shocked. Only silence filled the room, and it matched the weight in my chest. The next morning, I called Jasmine. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just came over with coffee and sat beside me. I told her everything. The voice, the laughter, the way they said my name. She didn't ask if I was sure. She knew I was. I wanted to believe he'd changed, but my gut had been warning me for weeks. The late replies. The sudden change in how often he reached out. The distance in his eyes when I talked. I'd ignored all of it because I wanted to be wrong. I wanted him to be who I remembered, not who he'd actually become. A few days passed. No word from him. I didn't reach out either. I think he thought I didn't hear anything that night. Or maybe he didn't care. But I wanted answers, even if I knew they'd hurt. I told Jasmine I needed to confront him, for my own closure. I showed up at his apartment unannounced. He looked surprised, but not nervous. That told me everything. If he'd been scared, I would have thought maybe he still cared. But he just stood there, leaning against the door like I was an inconvenience. I asked him if he was still seeing Elena. His eyes narrowed. Why are you asking that? Because I heard her. I was here. I heard you both. He exhaled, annoyed. You're being dramatic. I laughed once. You think I imagined it? I think you're reading too much into things again, he said, as if I was some paranoid ex who couldn't let go. I asked him about the messages, the perfume, the bobby pin. He shrugged. You're always looking for something wrong. That's why we didn't work. You're deflecting. He stepped back and said, I don't have time for this. That was it. He didn't deny it. He didn't admit it. He didn't care. And that hurt more than the lie itself. Jasmine suggested I stop searching for closure from a man who couldn't even admit the truth. But I needed to see it. Not to hurt myself more, but to stop questioning my own sanity. I remembered that I'd once synced my old tablet to his account. He still had it. I still had access. I charged it that night and opened it. It was all there, messages between him and Elena, affectionate, intimate, dated during the exact time we'd reconnected. Pictures she sent him. Inside jokes. Him telling her, Maya's still around. She doesn't suspect a thing. I stared at that line for a long time. There was more. Screenshots of my texts, shared in a group chat with two of his friends. My words, dissected and laughed at. One of them wrote, Bro, she still thinks you changed? Daniel replied, she wants to. Makes her easier to manage. I felt cold. Not angry. Just hollow. I had been a game to him. A fallback. A joke. I didn't call. I didn't message. There was nothing left to say. He told me everything in those screenshots. Every excuse he made, every half-truth, every deflection, it all led to this. He never changed. He never intended to. I stared at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because I let myself forget who I was. I had trusted someone who saw my vulnerability as weakness. Someone who used my hope as an entry point. I deleted everything. His number. The messages. The photos. The backups. I logged out of the tablet and put it away. There was no need to keep a piece of him alive in my space. When I finally lay down, I didn't cry. I didn't even feel rage. Just stillness. I had no more questions, no more excuses, no more waiting. The truth was ugly, but it was mine now. And for the first time, that felt like power. Let me know when you're ready for section 3, where Maya begins to heal and chooses herself over pain. Here is section 3 of the story, continuing from the last moment of clarity. As requested, it's focused, emotionally grounded, and written in a clear, powerful tone with a minimum of 760 words, maintaining the narrative flow without repetition or filler. The days that followed were quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful, more like the kind where you realize how much noise someone brought into your life. I didn't miss him. I missed who I thought he was. There's a difference. I went through every corner of my apartment and removed traces of him. The book he left on my shelf. The shirt I used to wear when I missed him. Even the mug he once said was his favorite, I threw it out without thinking twice. Every item held a memory I no longer wanted to honor. Jasmine kept checking on me. She never asked how I was healing. She just showed up and sat with me, That's what real people do. She didn't rush me to move on or pretend like I should suddenly feel empowered. She just let me exist in whatever space I was in that day. One afternoon, I opened a blank page on my laptop. I didn't know what I was writing at first. But it turned into a letter, to myself. Not the version of me now, but the one who had stayed, who had believed, who had waited for a man to become someone he never was. I wrote, "I forgive you. You didn't know. You only hoped." I wrote that I was proud of her for walking away the moment truth stepped out from behind the lie. I told her that loving someone isn't stupid. Trusting isn't weakness. But staying where you're not valued, that's the lesson. I didn't save the letter. I just typed it, read it once, and closed the window. I didn't need to keep it. I just needed to hear it out loud in my own head. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I'd ignored the signs. Why silence had felt safer than confrontation. My therapist asked, "What did you want from him that you couldn't give yourself?" That question stayed with me longer than any of Daniel's lies ever did. The answer came slowly. I had wanted reassurance. I wanted to be chosen. And now, I realized I could choose myself. Not in some cliché, performative way. But by making decisions that didn't circle back to pain. I didn't need revenge. I didn't want him to see me happy. I just wanted peace. I stopped looking at his social media. Blocked him on everything. Not because I was bitter, but because I didn't want to keep the door cracked open. A closed door isn't a punishment. It's protection. One morning, I walked by the mirror in my hallway and caught my reflection. I paused, not to check my appearance, but to really look. I didn't look tired anymore. My eyes didn't carry the weight of pretending everything was okay. There was a calmness I hadn't seen before. I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I was proud. I moved into a smaller apartment across town. New walls, new keys, no memories attached to the furniture. It felt good to start fresh without the ghosts. I bought myself flowers every Sunday. Not because I was lonely, but because I didn't need a reason to treat myself with care. One night, I downloaded a dating app. I scrolled for a few minutes, then closed it. Not because I was scared, but because I realized I wasn't searching anymore. I wasn't waiting to be validated. Love would come again, maybe. But it wouldn't come at the cost of my peace. That was the new standard. I thought about Daniel less and less. Not because I was forcing myself to forget, but because the version of him that lived in my mind no longer existed. The man I'd loved had been a projection. And the man he truly was never deserved the space I gave him. Sometimes healing isn't loud. It doesn't always come with a dramatic transformation. Sometimes, it's in the little things, the decision to stay home instead of replying to a text from someone who once hurt you. The deep breath before you say, "No, I deserve better." The quiet moments where you realize you're not waiting for anyone to fix what you already mended. I stopped wondering if he ever felt sorry. Whether he missed me. Those questions belong to the past. The only thing I carry now is clarity. And that weighs a lot less than hope ever did. The door is closed. This time, I'm not waiting behind it. I'm walking past it. Let me know if you'd like the full script combined, or if you want a voiceover draft formatted for a faceless video channel. Absolutely. Here's section 4 of the story, continuing with precision, emotional honesty, and forward movement. It meets the minimum 760 word count, maintains the story's tone, avoids repetition, and respects the structure of a powerful, faceless infidelity narrative. 2 months later, he texted me again. "I've been thinking. Can we talk?" No apology. No ownership. Just the same loop starting all over again. I stared at the message for a while, not because I considered replying, but because it proved something. He hadn't changed. He never would. It wasn't love. It was access. I was never special to him. I was available. I didn't respond. I archived the message and blocked the number without hesitation. Not out of spite, but because it was no longer mine to deal with. That version of me, the one who would have replied, even out of curiosity, was gone. She learned the hard way. She doesn't live here anymore. I told Jasmine later that day. She nodded like she already knew he'd come crawling back. They always do when they realize the door won't open again, she said. She wasn't surprised. I wasn't either. The surprise would have been accountability. and people like him don't hold mirrors. They just keep reaching for the ones who used to reflect their best lies. Life didn't change dramatically after that. There was no big moment. No sudden high. Just a steady return to myself. I spent more time with people who didn't drain me. People who listened, not just waited to speak. I stopped explaining myself to anyone who wasn't trying to understand me. That, more than anything, changed how I moved through the world. The best part wasn't that I healed, it was realizing I'd outgrown the kind of love that needed to be earned through suffering. I didn't want passion that came wrapped in apology. I wanted consistency. I wanted truth the first time. And I'd rather be alone than ever settle for anything less again. I started focusing more on the things I used to enjoy before I got wrapped up in him. I picked up books I'd left unfinished. I went back to painting. I even started journaling, not about him, but about me. My thoughts. My fears. My decisions. I was learning to be present in my own story again. Point 1 entry read, "You don't need anyone to choose you if you're already standing for yourself." That sentence became a quiet mantra. Not loud, not shared, not posted. Just a whisper to myself on the days I needed it. Months passed. I saw his name pop up in mutual circles online. Still with Elena. Then not. Then someone else. It was a cycle, as expected. He moved fast, but never forward. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt removed. Detached. That's how I knew I was done. True closure isn't a conversation, it's indifference. I saw someone new around that time. A soft start. No fireworks. Just steady kindness. I didn't rush it. I didn't project meaning onto every word. I let things unfold naturally. And when something felt off, I said it. I didn't swallow discomfort for the sake of keeping peace. I had learned that silence was too expensive. Whether or not it works out isn't the point. The point is, I'm no longer afraid to walk away. I'm no longer tied to the idea that love should be earned by patience through pain. I don't believe in fixing someone who broke me. I once thought the hardest part of betrayal was the lie. But now I know it's the self-betrayal that lingers. All the times I stayed when I knew better. All the moments I explained away what was clearly disrespect. That's the part one had to forgive. And I did. Looking back, I don't hate him. I hate that I allowed my worth to be questioned in the name of love. But that's the kind of hate that passes once the lesson lands. Now, it's just a scar. Visible sometimes, but not painful. It's a reminder. Not a wound. If there's one thing I hold on to, it's that I came back to myself. Piece by piece. Quietly. Without needing validation. I rebuilt not because I had to, but because I deserved to exist outside of someone else's damage. He once told me I'd never find someone like him again. He was right. I won't. Because I finally learned to love in a way that doesn't leave me empty, and now, I know what it feels like to never need to reopen that door. Not for apology. Not for clarity. Not even for closure. Because the most powerful thing I ever did was stop waiting for a better version of someone who already showed me who they were, and this time, I believed them. Ready whenever you are for another section, full story assembly, or repurposing for narration, captions, or social formatting.